Hey guys, welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, I am your host. Very happy today to be joined by a special guest, Mr. Darius Butler, who played in the NFL for 9 years for the Colts, the Patriots, and the Carolina Panthers as well. He is the host of the Man to the Pod, as well as the Everything DB show. Probably seen him on Pat McAfee's show as well. Darius,
Yes,
thanks for taking the
sir.
time to join me today. How you doing?
Steven, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. That's the man to man pod with Antoine Bethea, a 14-year NFL veteran. We go live every Monday and Thursdays, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you check us out, man. Appreciate you having me, man. I'm glad to jump on, man. I'm a
Yeah, happy.
big fan of your team now.
Let's go. I love it. I think, we're really in this really cool era where all these players and former players have such a nice platform with podcasts and things like that. If you have not checked out Darius and Antoine Bethea's pod, please go do so because it really is such a cool experience to hear from two NFL vets, their insight into the season and stuff like that. So please go check that out. Darius, I think we had some other plans to start with, right? But the Patriots had to go and release Stephon Gilmore today, which is great because I think you obviously have a unique experience there because A, you played in the league, and B, you played, in the defensive backfield in the secondary. What's your kind of reaction there for Stephon Gilmore? And I know you said on Pat McAfee's show earlier today that you think the Chargers could be a fit there. So, what's your reaction there, and why do you think he would be a good fit in Los Angeles with the Chargers?
I mean, he's a great player, a great well-rounded cornerback. He can play man to man is his. That's what he does. That's what he does best. Gilly, lock, bumper run, Gilmore. But being in that Patriot system, like you said, A, played in the league, B, played DB, and C, played and got drafted by the Patriots. So I know how
Yeah.
it kind of goes over there, and they kind of forced you. A lot of teams you can go to and just kind of learn your position or learn your defense or whatever. But for the Patriots, they have to be so multiple. The game plan is so different every week that you're forced to just learn football, as a
Yeah.
whole. And so I think he's talented enough. He's smart enough to go and play anywhere. I know the Chargers have the money. I know the Chargers, they're already a talented ball club. I watch them, every week because of my fandom of Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
But Brandon Staley having a very smart defensive minded head coach that can do multiple things on defense. I just think Gilmore would be a perfect fit to kind of help get them over their hump. One of the weaknesses right now with the Chargers early on in the season at least has been their run defense. They're giving up like 5 yards to carry.
Yeah.
So when you don't have the personnel where you can just have 7 men in the box and stop the run, it's better when you can get a guy who can lock down the side of the field so you can
Mhm.
allocate, more of your resources to stopping that run. Because at some point you're going to have to do it in this league. I know it's a pass happy league, but at some point you're going to have to stop that run. So I think it'll be a great addition to the Chargers. A great veteran mind and veteran presence back there. And like I said, they got the money. You got a great quarterback on the rookie deal. So at this point in the game, I feel like why not, go ahead and shoot your shot and try to make a run for a championship.
Yeah, it's a really interesting move on paper, especially Tom Telesco. We've never really seen him make that big push all your chips in move, and that obviously would be, what this would be. Then
Yep.
again, he's never had that rookie quarterback on a rookie contract. He's always had, Philip Rivers 20 million plus. So that would be really interesting. And to your point about stopping the run, that comes this week, man. They play the Browns, they play the Ravens next week. Very interesting challenge there
Oh yeah.
on tap. And so I think you kind of transitioning a little bit more specifically to the Chargers. What have you seen from Asante Samuel Jr. this year? Because that would, to me, be a really interesting pairing with Samuel, Gilmore, Mike Davis. And I wanted to highlight the rookie and get your perspective on him. So what have you seen from the Chargers' second round pick this year?
So I hate. I don't know how many people know this, but I personally hate college football. So I don't watch much of it at all.
Okay.
But Asante Samuel Jr., being down here, Broward County, being from down here, just like his pops, Asante Samuel Sr., I've been kind of following him from high school, so on what he did down here in high school, then went up to Florida State. And now, I mean, he's not only a good player, but there's certain players in the league who just somehow the ball finds them. He's one of those players, just like his dad, and he's a
Yeah.
smart player. He can play bumper run, he can play off. I think at some point he'll be in the slot. He can play slot, he can play outside. He's just aggressive, and I love him. I think he should have been a first round pick. Personally, the Chargers got lucky grabbing him in the second round. because this was the first year I actually did some, pre-draft work. I did the draft with with PFF this year, and he was a guy that I thought should have been a first-round pick. But he looks great, man, and I love him in that secondary. And Staley trusts him. When I watch film, on the Chargers, you can tell, how much a defensive coordinator or how much a play caller trusts their corners by, where they put them. When do they roll coverages away from them? They roll coverages to them. And you can tell they do a lot of different things, and they're not worried about 26 at all. So I love that for him. And it'll be a great pairing, not only for him, but for the defense and the secondary as a whole. But if he can be around a guy like Stephon Gilmore, because in those meeting rooms, in those walkthroughs, those things are so vital and critical to young players in NFL, because you can learn from coaches, college, high school, you learn most of your football from coaches. But honestly, in the pros, you learn most of your football and kind of the edge you get from older veteran players. So I think Gilmore will pay huge dividends to a guy like Asante Samuel in that same secondary meeting room.
Yeah, that would be super interesting. And to your point, they did cross-train him a little bit, Asante Samuel Jr., that is, in the slot and outside in training camp. And when Chris Harris Jr. went down with injury, we all kind of assumed that Asante would play a little bit more in the slot, but he's been all outside so far. So I think that points to Staley's trust in him, like you're talking about.
And that's real quick. That's a smart move by Staley, though, because planning that slot is a difficult position. A lot of people just think, third corner, or he's smaller, or he's this. Yeah, just put him in slot. That's a tough position to play, especially in today's NFL. You see a lot of teams putting their best defensive back in the slot. The Rams, the Chiefs, the Ravens, like those teams put their best defensive player in there because they always can have some type of impact on the play. But that's smart by Staley saying, hey, let's just put him outside. Let's give him, let him learn that outside. I'm sure at some point in his career though, he'll bump into that slot when need be. But I love to see what he's doing so far this season.
Yeah, and that to me has been a really interesting trend around the league, right? Because I mean, Jalen Ramsey in Jacksonville, it's like, no, he's outside. Like, you're not moving him around. You put him in the, shadow of the best receiver on the outside.
Yep.
Now we're seeing him in the slot some more. We're seeing, all these teams put, Marlon Humphrey in the slot. Like, that's just something that I don't know. Maybe as a casual fan, I'm not used to seeing, the top corners on a team play in the slot.
Yeah.
And do you think that's kind of in response to all these teams having, 11 personnel all the time? Every team has a Cooper Kupp, a Chris Godwin.
Exactly.
What kind of transition are you seeing in terms of like the defensive backfield in the NFL right now?
You got to adjust. It's just kind of the evolution of where we are in football, because, offensive coordinators, offensive play callers realize, hey, let's put our best player, our best pass catcher wherever. You see it with the Chargers. They put Keenan Allen in the slot a lot. Just put our, Stephon Diggs goes to the slot. D-Hop goes. Everybody can play in the slot now. So you have to be able to move your best players in the slot and defend passes and runs and things as well. So it's kind of evolution. The defense in the NFL, I feel like, is always a step or two behind the offensive trends. And now, so that's what we're seeing now. So I said this a few weeks ago on my Twitter. I'll be hard pressed to pay a corner, 20, 25 million a year if he can't go and play in the slot, because if you go out and line up on the left or right side, or you try to shadow a guy on the outside, like, quarterbacks can just throw away from that. Offensive coordinators just go away from you. So I need to be able to get my money's worth if I'm paying a defender that type of money. So you got to be able to be multiple. And the NFL is becoming more and more of a space game. Like, how good are you? That's why, Derwin James is so, because he can play all over the field. He can play in the run. He can play in pass. And I'm comfortable with 33, being in space. So that's what this game is kind of evolving into. So you have players that can do multiple things regardless of position. You make them more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interested to see what the Chargers do with the potential Derwin James extension down the road. But enough spoilers for now. You talked about Justin Herbert. You're fanning for him. You've said on the Pat McAfee show you're the captain of the Justin Herbert fan club. How did that start? Because it was not like Justin Herbert is become this super popular player. Like, you've been on him from last season.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from him? What did you see last year from him, and what are you seeing from him now?
Well, so even when he was in college, it was a time, I'm gonna say maybe his junior, sophomore year, where he was kind of tabbed as, hey, this is gonna be the next great one. This is gonna be number one pick going forward. And then his last year in college, he kind of fell down behind a couple other guys because there were some question marks about his leadership skills and his leadership ability. And I kind of fell in that trap too. And when it comes to evaluating players in the front office and the combine and all these things, that's when you're supposed to kind of get behind that curtain and figure out, who this guy is, especially if you're going to tab him as the next, franchise quarterback. And I don't know if you read Mina Khan's article on him, but it kind of dug more deeper into who he was kind of as an introvert. And you don't necessarily need to be that
Yeah.
outlier in your face type leader. So reading that article, but even before reading that article, just seeing his play, to get kind of thrown in the fire. First game being against defending Super Bowl champs, Kansas City Chiefs. He takes him down to the wire to overtime, and he gets that call, from the stories like a few minutes, if that, before kickoff. And for any player, that's tough to do, but especially for a quarterback, like most quarterbacks, they're groomed. Hey, you're our guy. OTAs, preseason, training camp, everything. You're getting groomed. The playbook is groomed around you and your skill set. So for him to get thrown in that fire after the mishap with Tyrod Taylor and to perform how he did, I was impressed from then. But sometimes you can't, you can't. I didn't jump on the bandwagon that quick. Sometimes that's the best thing for a young player.
Yeah.
Just get out there when you're numb and you're just playing football and everything's just happening. But now, that first season, to see week in, week out, like he just got better and he continued to get better. And it was a lot of situations, honestly, where he wasn't in great situations for a quarterback, period, especially young
Right.
quarterbacks. A lot of times he was behind the sticks, second and long. And he always performed. I think his play caller got fired actually or switched, midway through his rookie year. But he just continued to get better, man. The Tampa game is really when I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
this is really a dude. And from then on, that's when I was on, and I watched him the rest of the year. I said, hey, even his first year as a full starter, 15 games, 14 games, whatever it was. I said, hey, this guy is already a top 8 quarterback in my book. I said last year, a lot of people, oh, you're crazy, this guy, that guy. Telling you, this is a top 8 quarterback. You hear Bruce Arians speak about him after that game in
Right.
Tampa Bay. And then coming in this year, I said, hey, by the end of this year, he'll be a top 5, top 3 quarterback. He'll win the MVP at some point in this league. And now you see more and more people are jumping on that train, but he's just a guy that can make every throw. Obviously, he's athletic enough to, pull it down and run when he needs to. But the entire field is open. He'll go to any player. You saw him go to, I think, Guyton in a critical,
Yeah.
down in the Chiefs game. Great play. I feel like Guyton could have made in that game in the end zone, but he went back to him. So every player is available. You got 2 receivers, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. I think they're around like 300 yards apiece. Jared Cook, is around like 200 yards from the season. Eckler's obviously a beast out of the backfield. So when you're playing as a defensive back, when hey, we got to defend the entire field with this quarterback. He can make every throw. And honestly, I feel like, which is kind of weird, he's kind of a better passer off platform than he is just standing in the pocket, which is crazy. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's not many things, honestly, I don't like about Justin Herbert. And that's why I jumped on that train as early as I did.
It was a really interesting start for him, right? Obviously, like the circumstances, with Tyrod Taylor were definitely not
Yeah.
ideal, but he played really well in glimpses against the Chiefs. And then his official, like real start where he had a week of prep against the Carolina Panthers, it was a lot of up and down. Like he had some really bad throws, staring down, corners and receivers,
Mm-hmm.
and he threw a couple bad picks. But then against the Tampa game and then the New Orleans game the following week, we really saw Justin Herbert like establish himself. And that to me, like I saw the glimpses again, but like after the Saints game, I was like, okay, the Chargers really went from a potential Hall of Fame quarterback in Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert. And it was just like, it was a wild first month for Justin Herbert last year.
Yeah, it was wild, and it's man, it's tough making a transition period to the NFL at any position. But that quarterback position is just so much thrown at you, week in, week out, and every week, defensive play callers, defensive players, smart players are figuring, okay, this is what he's good at, this is what he isn't good at. Identifying formation. Where's Keenan Allen? Where's this player? Where's that player? So dealing with those type of things every week, week in and week out. It's tough to do, especially early on in his career. But he's doing it, and he's been doing it, and I can only see him, getting better. And the guys around him, you can tell, trust him. And then on the other, then to have a defensive-minded head coach, and to have the players that you have on defense, Bosa, Derwin, Asante Samuel Jr. I don't want to mess his name up. 24.
Nasir Adderley.
Yeah, Adderley is playing great as well to start the season. But you got a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. And then when you have a defensive-minded head coach, you got a quarterback like Herbert. As long as you keep a guy in there that can call plays and make it, easier and easier for him, you can have a recipe for some long-term success, man. So I'm excited about, this Chargers ball club. The biggest issue I feel like with the Chargers team right now is, kind of sloppiness, and you kind of expect that with a first-year head coach. Even as smart as he is, that kind of comes with years and time on the job. But if they can clean up those penalties, a lot of untimely penalties, some terrible penalties. You go back to that Cowboys game, this team could easily be, 4-0 if they cleaned up a lot of their, unforced errors. But that's a part of the process. And but they're in a great position right now. They're in a much better spot than a lot of teams around the league. And if you're in the same division as a team like, the Chiefs, who are built for long-term success, I feel like the Chargers are set up, better than anybody else to compete with them long-term.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there, right? But I think something that you hit on is just the way that this team has evolved and can beat you, right? Because they're not playing at their peak in terms of crisp, smooth football. But you look at what happened Monday night, and Allen and Mike Williams had 47 total yards between the two of them, and they won by 2 touchdowns. And so, like, as a Chargers fan, it's just so exciting to look at this team and thinking, like, man, they're not even like hitting their stride yet. And they're 3-1. They just beat the Raiders by 2 touchdowns on Monday Night Football. It's just a great time to be a Chargers fan.
It really is. And even last year, I mean, you saw the potential early on for now, obviously Herbert, but for the team. There were a lot of, one-score games that you guys lost. And if you just watch the play of a rookie quarterback, you're like, man, he played well enough to win 10, 11 games last year. But you guys, won however many games you won. But there were so many games that you were in, the last second. Maybe it was some clock management. It was some issues down the stretch that, coaches just kind of have to go through and figure out. I think they made an excellent hire with Brandon Staley. I actually saw a clip that may have went out yesterday. I reposted on my Twitter today, and him just talking about even like the run game and how important it is to establish that, from the physicality aspect of the offense. So when you even just me as a former player, and now, been in the media and just hearing a coach speak, how he spoke, even me as a player, if I'm hitting free agency or if it's something I have an opportunity to play for a coach, obviously you're going to LA, you're playing that beautiful stadium. But that's another reason why I would, be in the front of that line to go play for that guy.
One of the things that I've loved about Brandon Staley, and I'm glad you kind of are pointing this out, is there's no secrets. Like, everything that he is like philosophically thinking and telling his players, he's telling us from the podium. And like, if you get a chance to watch his press conferences, like, I highly recommend it, because like, obviously, way more football than I do, being in the league and stuff like that. But I learn something new every time I listen to Brandon Staley speak. And the thing that is always so clear is that he truly believes in his players. And like, and you can always hear that. Like, he called Justin Herbert a gangster. What does that do for you within a locker room when you 100% know that my coach believes in the best, that I can be the best me here? And how does that kind of permeate throughout the locker room?
Man, that does everything. That does everything. I go back to my rookie year. We went and played, and playing the league is kind of surreal in itself, right? You have a childhood dream, and you actually go and realize it, and you're playing in the NFL. But once you get to the NFL, it becomes your job. It's every day. It's in the off season. It's working, and it becomes kind of just your day to day. You can kind of lose the fact that, hey, I'm playing in the NFL. One of the moments that was kind of like, hey, I'm really in the NFL. This is kind of like some movie type stuff. Is one game we were playing against Peyton Manning, and in that 4th and 2 game when Belichick went for it on 4th and 2 on offense, and that was one of the moments as a young player where I'm like, wow, like I'm really, Peyton Manning's really looking at me right now, making audibles and checking. But at the end of the day, he made Belichick made that call to go for it on 4th and 2. We weren't successful. Peyton got the ball back, went down and drove and scored on us, and we lost that game. But after the game the next day, team meeting, Belichick got in front of the team and said, "Hey, we lost the game, but I had confidence in my offense. My best players would go out there and get their job done. So at the end of the day, you'll never be able to look at me and say I'm scared or I don't trust you guys to get the job done. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's what it is. So for Brandon Staley to do what he does and then go out and stand in front of the camera and the podium and say, hey, this is why I did it. I want to put the ball in my best player's hand. You go and score. A lot of people, especially the analytics people and this and that, hey, hold the ball and do this. I'm like, hey, go and score a touchdown if you can and trust your defense, especially if they're playing like that, to get a stop. So they scored and gave the ball back to Mahomes with 30-something seconds left on the clock, and they went out there and got a stop. And then he went out and stood in front of the cameras and basically explained exactly why he did what he did. So that resonates throughout the locker room. And through the fan base. The fan base hey, we got a guy that's calling the plays, the guy with the headset on. He knows and he trusts those guys that he's with, every day of the week, practice, walk-through meetings to go out there on Sundays to get the job done. So that counts, and that counts a hell of a lot, in my opinion.
I'm glad you brought up that specific example, because that really is, it's been so much fun to watch. I'm sure your phone's been getting blown up, man. Of course, we happen to talk about this. I don't know if you saw already, but the Patriots have traded Stephon Gilmore to the Panthers for a 2023 6th-round pick.
A 6th-round pick?
A 6th-round pick in 2023, not even next year, in 2 years.
Wow.
So some live breaking news on the Guilty as Charged podcast.
I didn't know it was confirmed, but wow. So he's going back home. He's from the Carolinas.
Oh yeah.
Played college ball down there. And that's a defense that's, with Phil Snow, he's been having that defense biting and playing. They've been playing like some gangsters down there. So that's a great addition, for them, obviously, after losing J.C. Horn early in the year. You signed, you traded for C.J. Henderson, so now you have another. That's a big move for them. That's shocking. That's why they put that news out that they'll be releasing them this morning, because they knew they had until 4:00 to get somebody to trade. I'm 6th-round pick. I'm surprised that's all it took. 2023 at that, but that's the business we're in.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a shocker that no one else could match that. But, to your point earlier, you were talking about, Asante Samuel Jr. and how that addition would benefit him. Now, J.C. Horn, I know he's hurt right now, but J.C. Horn gets to have Stephon Gilmore. I love J.C. Horn coming out. I don't know if you did, but
same college too. Both South Carolina guys. Both South Carolina guys. Both 1st-round picks from that. And that university has put out a lot of good corners in the league. Captain Munnerlyn, Jonathan Joseph, Dante Robinson. So now they'll be together. They'll be, obviously, that's a big pickup for the Panthers.
Are the Panthers your kind of biggest surprise at this point? Because I figured that they would be better than last year, but they're sitting at 3-1. I know they just lost to the Cowboys, but are the Panthers your biggest surprise right now?
No, I think they'll struggle until C-Mac gets back, because he's such a big part of their offense. He'll be a big part of anybody's offense, but I think he's played a huge role in Sam Darnold's early success. You saw him struggle a little bit more without him against the Cowboys. But I think when he gets back, they'll be doing much better. They may, have a rough little patch here, but that defense, Matt Rule, since he's got in the building, his first draft, he went all 7 picks defense, which isn't, sexy to the fan base, but that's, you need a defense to win ball games. And then you go out and make a trade for Sam Darnold, who obviously they saw some promise in his future, put some weapons around him. He's been playing, much better, at least through 4 games. So I'm not surprised by it. I wouldn't say I'm surprised by it. I didn't expect him to start 3-0, but definitely not surprised by their early success. You go out and draft Derek Brown high, sign Hassan Reddick, Brian Burns, who I'm a big fan of as well, J.C. Horn, Jeremy Chin. You put your resources there and they're paying dividends. So now you go out and make a trade for Stephon Gilmore. So you got a tough defense that, teams shouldn't be able to walk into that stadium and put up, 30 points easily. So that takes a little pressure off of your quarterback. Maybe he just got to go out there and put 3 touchdowns on the board, and they got a good chance to win every Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely, man. A 6th-round pick in 2 years. I can't believe that. That's wild.
Incredible.
Well, Darius, man, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us to talk about, all the various things that we talked about. Justin Herbert, Asante Samuel Jr. What do you have coming up on the pod with Antoine Bethea, and where can Chargers fans find you if they want to check you guys out?
Yeah, man. So every Monday and Thursday from now, YouTube, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm on with Antoine Bethea with on the Man to Man Pod on YouTube. So go and check that out. I post videos breaking down specific defensive plays or schemes, etc. on everything DB. I'll be starting my own daily show, most likely on YouTube. It'll be called the Darius Butler Show. So follow me on the socials at Darius J Butler on Twitter. Pretty active on there. And on Instagram as well. And, looking forward to jumping back on here, whenever I can as well.
Yeah, man, you are welcome anytime to talk ball. I think this is such a unique experience for our listeners, and very excited about the Darius Butler Show, man. That's awesome. Congrats there.
Coming soon, man. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good one, man. We'll check in soon.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.